and we'll be sharing it out after the session as well. Just like we had that poll in the front end, we'll have a few more polls throughout just so that we can test if you guys are getting what we're saying, or if we need to explain something further, dive into something deeper, highlight a resource more after the session in our follow-up email. So thank you in advance for participating in the polls that we will be launching throughout. To introduce myself, my name is Shayla Diedrich. I'm a change consultant on the project, have been working with Ohio State for the past year now, and I'm joined by Bonnie Benson, Alicia Hamilton, and Tammy Ammett, and they'll introduce themselves when we get to their portion. But we'll go ahead and get started. Couple of objectives for the training today, if you're not familiar. This is really meant to be, like I said, baseline, give you a baseline understanding of how you'll use Workday as an administrative assistant. So we're definitely not expecting you to be experts coming in or even feeling super confident coming into the training. So we really want to provide that high level understanding, give you a sense of what you can do on others' behalf in Workday as well, and make sure that you know what to expect at a high level at Go Live and beyond Go Live. Go on to the next slide, Bonnie. So in terms of what Workday is, if that's where your level of understanding is starting today, Workday is, like it says on the screen, really meant to be a single portal, easy to access system for your employee information and Ohio State's institutional data. So we'll be talking a lot about HR today, not really so much finance and supply chain, a little bit about finance, but not supply chain at all. And it really is meant to be user-friendly in terms of the design experience. So I'm hoping that makes you feel better as administrative assistants, and probably someone that everyone in your unit and college comes to ask how things work. It really is meant for public consumption and meant to be easy to use. We'll show you the processes because, of course, it is technology and everyone interacts with technology in a different way. So we will show you what these processes look like. But what I'm hoping you'll find is that these really make sense and that they're easy to use, and that the visual experience makes it so that you don't have to describe too much to people who are using Workday at Go Live. If you go on to the next slide, as a reminder, if you didn't know, Go Live is January 3rd. And Go Live is the date that Workday is available for you to use in its real form. So we have a lab tenant that will drop the link into the chat. You can log into as yourself. You don't need to proxy as someone else or pretend to be someone else or use a different login. You'll be able to use your own login. And that's going to be available on Sunday, January 3rd. A couple of days later, our finance and supply chain aspect of the site will open up, and then a few years down the line, Workday Student will open up. Several objectives for the training today. I'm not going to read through all of these, but you'll get a sense here that we're going to be showing you what you can do in advance of Workday going live and in advance of leader onboarding that you might be involved with. So your leaders might be asking you how to do things, and what we show you will be helpful in that regard. We'll talk a little bit about booking travel and expense reports and purchasing, how that process works. And we'll talk about, like I said, what you can do on others' behalf if you're a manager liaison initiator. But perhaps most importantly, we'll tell you where you can go to get help if you forget some of the things in this training or miss something, because there is going to be a lot of content in the training. I apologize in advance if it feels overwhelming, but we're really trying to hit on a lot of different things and record the session so that you can come back and revisit. We really just want you to remember that you heard about certain things today so that you can go back and review in the Administrative Resource Center and in the recording. So first I'm going to pass it to Bonnie to talk about, like I said, where to go to get help if you forget everything that we say the next hour and 54 minutes.
Awesome. Hey, everybody. Bonnie Benson here. I am the Change Management Director for the Enterprise Project, and really glad that you all are taking time out of your very busy days to join us. So I just want to mention before we get started, everything that we show today, you'll be able to look up and get step-by-step instructions through what we call the Administrative Resource Center. This is something that's currently live, and I would recommend that you make a note to yourself to head out to this website after this session and make sure you bookmark it. But this is basically where you'll be able to get access to job aids, quick videos, as well as other information about Workday. You will need to log in using your name.number, but once you're in, you'll have access to a lot of different resources. So I'm just going to give you a quick tour today. The other thing that I also want to mention is that this is actually connected to Compass. So you can actually search the Administrative Resource Center through that Compass search as well. So here you'll see across the top, we have a couple different things. We have resources, FAQs, and a glossary. So if you search for words here, you'll be able to search for various Workday terms. If you don't know what they are, you'll have that glossary option. But if I click on Workday, oh, I guess I have to log in. Okay. So if I click on this Workday service, it takes me to this landing page where I have lots of different options. I have, I could take a look at resources for finance users, HR, payroll, supply chain. But in your situation as an administrative assistant, you'd most likely be interested in the items behind the Workday for employees and Workdays for managers and leaders. So if I click on this particular tile, it takes me to the Workday for employees page. And here I have this little plus to drill down into all the available job aids. So as you can see here, there's lots of different job aids on just general how to navigate within Workday, time and absence, so how to log time, how to take time off, procurement, which is how to buy stuff, expenses for those that are traveling or supporting those that travel, and some other items as well. You could also click on the plus here for video demos. And we have a few items here as well. These are short YouTube videos, usually less than 10 minutes each, that give you kind of an overview of the process. These are really great to watch, and they don't take a ton of time, and they show you exactly the process end to end. So let me just show you a real quick kind of what does one of these job aids look like. So I'm going to click on personal information change. So you'll see here there's a little bit of an overview about what the job aid is, the intended audience, and as well as some important information could be available on some job aids. And then, of course, you have step-by-step instructions for each of these particular items. You'll also notice on the bottom, of course, we have the date for the last modification as well. So that's going to be important to kind of keep an eye out for, especially since Workday is one of those systems that's updated twice per year. And so with that, we'll, of course, be updating our training materials to match that. But anyways, so we're going to go through some transactions today. And so as you're following along, if you're just know that you will be able to access these job aids in the Administrative Resource Center at the conclusion of the session to be able to see, to be able to practice these items in the lab tenant, as Shayla mentioned. So if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. And with that being said, I'm going to pass it back on over to Shayla to continue with the presentation.
Thank you, Bonnie. Okay, in terms of accessing Workday, so I know I promised to drop in our lab environment, something called our lab tenant, into the chat, which I just did. So you should be able to log into that environment with your own OSU account. So you'll still use Buckeye Pass as you have previously, so that process is not different. And since Workday isn't live yet, I'm going to be working out of a training environment. It's not OSU 10, it's a different environment, but you'll be able to see all of the same back-end processes and locations of where things are in terms of what I'm pointing out as most relevant and most important in terms of go live. There's a lot to show and a lot to see and a lot to do. Don't worry, we're not going to be showing you everything, just what is going to be most important just before and just after go live. And you'll always have access to this lab environment. So it's not just for this training. You'll have access even through and after go live if you want to get some practice for some reason in a low stakes environment and not in the real Workday training environment. You can go on to the next page. So like I said, OSU 10, the lab tenant is what you're going to use to get in as yourself and practice, so it will reflect your current security role. Everyone has various security roles. You might have one or two, you might have 3 or 4 security roles. It's different for every person. Obviously, your security roles are going to look a lot different than someone who's a payroll specialist and has different kinds of access. So ultimately, your security role gives you certain access to view or do certain things in Workday. Eventually, the place that you'll go to is workday.osu.edu, and there'll also be a Go link, but none of those will work right now because we're not live on the current version of Workday that will be there on January 3rd. Further, you'll be able to access Workday on a mobile app. You can go on to the next screen, Bonnie, to talk about the mobile app experience. It is optimized to work on a mobile device. And I'm sure that you, as well as many other personnel in your unit or college, will want to take advantage of this, probably more so when we return to a world where we travel again. But we will have directions on how to download this in the ARC. You could download it now, but you would have to log into the lab tenant and then undownload it and then re-download it when we get back into Go Live. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend you use the mobile just yet. I would recommend leaning on the lab tenant on your desktop or laptop for now. Okay, you can jump onto the next slide. So we're going to go right into Workday now. And like I said, I am in the training tenant. So I'm going to share my screen here and steal it from Bonnie. And like Bonnie said, any questions that you have, whether they're relevant or not, you can put them in the chat because we'll save all of the questions from the chat that we weren't able to answer, that we didn't have time to address, and make sure that we get them answered and post them in the Administrative Resource Center. But back to the special training environment. So I am working on behalf of Adam Gurr, who's not a real person, not an employee at Ohio State University. And because this is a training tenant and it has fake or synthetic, we call it, information, that's meant to protect everyone's privacy at Ohio State, so we're not using any real people, real examples. But one of the things this causes is kind of some wonky data showing up, or maybe some empty cells appearing that you would expect to be populated with information that will be populated with information in the real Workday environment, much more likely to be populated in the lab tenant that you all can log into. But for now, just make note of that because you might see some weird info. But do know that the business processes and the things that you can do are the same, and the click path that you take will be the same. So it is configured like the Ohio State Workday environment will be, but some of the data is going to look a little bit different. Okay, so a few things that I wanted to highlight in this portion are your inbox, your notifications, and how delegation works. So first place I'm going to go to is our notifications, which is in the top right, and it's always going to stay in the top right. So no matter what I click on, if I click on my profile, it will always stay there, along with my inbox, the special navigation, the search bar, and the block O, we call it, to bring you back to the original home screen. So I'll click on the notifications, which is the bell-shaped icon in the top right. And this includes updates about Workday processes that will affect you or that you may be interested in. It does not require any action, but it's something that you may need to take action on, or your manager needs to take action on outside of Workday. So maybe talk to a direct report about the conference they're attending, call HR Connection if you didn't make that direct deposit update that you meant to make. But they are nice to knows and often involve doing something outside of Workday. So it's not a required action in Workday. Similarly to Outlook, when you click on the item on the left side, it will show more details on the right side. So I was playing around with delegation with Adam Gurr, you'll be able to tell just before this training. And these are some of the actions related to, or the nice to knows related to delegation and creating job requisitions, which we'll talk more about in the training. The inbox is really the meat of some of the business processes that you might be involved with in Workday. And similarly, it'll show as an orange dot how many items are in there. And the inbox items are ones that you would take action on. So there's always a few different options. The most common ones are approve, deny, send back, save for later, and close, which is just exiting out of that item. It's not closing a business process or ending a business process. One of the ones that you won't see is delete. So in Workday, it's really important that we're seeing the process of certain business process or the flow of certain business processes and who took action on them. So for example, this job requisition that someone was testing out just recently before the training, we took action on this, maybe to approve something, and it's in our archive of our inbox. So it's something that passed. This archive is, for me, from my perspective, much more useful than my Outlook archive. I never look at my Outlook archive, but this is something that you'll make reference to probably more often to make sure that you approve something right on behalf of someone else or on behalf of yourself, or that something went through, or that the next person in line to take action on this really is the next person in line. And you'll be able to see that through this process tab. So when you click into any item, it's going to show your actions, what you did. Maybe you can reopen something and you'll have to click over to process. You can get more details about it too, but I really want to highlight this process one where you can see when people took action on it, who took action on it, any comments that they added, and the details of what remaining steps there are, whether optional or required. So right now we have waiting on me to do something with this change default compensation action. Okay, now I'm going to go back to the block O and talk a little bit about delegation, which allows you to delegate an inbox or give someone else permission to do something in your inbox. And this could be anyone to anyone else. So it could be Adam Gurr, who's an administrative assistant. He wants to give someone else access to certain items in his inbox to take certain actions. He's not giving someone else a different security role. He's giving them access for a certain amount of time in a certain time period to be able to do certain items in his inbox. So I'll show you an example of how easy it is to fulfill this process. So this is one that I added so that you could see what an existing one looks like, but I'll show you what it looks like to add a new one. Let's say I'm going away for a month here, maybe more than a month, and I want to be able to delegate certain inbox tasks to my friend John or Jonas, because I already gave John some items, and I just want him to be able to correct absence for me in terms of things that he can start, and in terms of things that I want him to be able to do or approve. I'll just click correct time off, and I'll actually do one more to show you that you can add a couple. You can add as many as all of them in there. These are pre-populated. You can't add a new one. So these are sort of pre-approved Ohio State items that can be delegated to another person. If I want to add a alternative person to complete these actions, maybe Jonas is out as well, I can add that person there, and I'll want to retain access to my own delegated tasks in my inbox so that they don't all just get sent. I still can see them in my inbox. So I'll submit that, but I see I have 2 alerts. So you'll see alerts and errors in Workday a lot when we go live because you'll be just getting used to the system. So don't feel too sad when you see this happen. It is going to happen a lot to you. Something to note about alerts is that alerts are just nice to knows and things that you should look at and make sure that you really want to move ahead with. But errors, on the other hand, are ones that you cannot move ahead with. They'll be a little bit more red than orange, and you can't move forward unless you fix the issue. But these are just alerts. So, okay, great. I know what's going on. Thank you for warning me that I'm giving someone else's permission, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. And now those tasks are delegated for that certain time period to the other person after the manager approves that they can be a delegate. I quickly want to jump back into the PowerPoint, if you would, Bonnie, so that I can show folks what this looks like in the Workday environment. Because one of the idiosyncrasies of the training environment is that I am proxied in as someone because it is a contrived and fake environment. So I can't show you what it looks like to pretend to be someone else while pretending to be someone else in the training environment. So what this will look like is actually pretty similar to what you saw, and you'll see again when I go back into the training site. On the top of my screen, it said on behalf of Adam Gurr, and this will similarly say on behalf of someone else when you're working on behalf of someone else. So if someone does delegate something to you, maybe it's a peer, maybe it's a manager, maybe it's another leader in your unit or college, you'll get an email that invites you to be able to switch accounts and see the certain inbox items in their account as them. It will ask, are you sure you want to switch accounts and work from that person's account, which is what that middle one is showing. You'll say, okay. And then on the top line, it will say you're now working on behalf of that other person. So showing you screenshots because I can't display that with the training tenant because I'm already proxied in or pretending to be someone else. So you can't have those dual layers. But when we use Workday, you'll just be logging in as yourself. You won't have to proxy as anyone else. So it will work in this way. Any questions coming through, Bonnie, that we can address, or not right now?
I don't see any questions at the moment, Shayla. But just a reminder, as we're going through this, if you have a question, feel free to pop it in the chat, and we'll either try to respond in the chat or for the whole group. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, great. Okay, I'm going to launch a poll here. So like I promised, we're going to launch polls throughout. We might save you from a few polls. We'll see how we do on time in the middle here, but we will have polls throughout. So this question is a little tricky. So if you haven't answered yet, I would invite you to read it twice. So the full part has to be true or false. So delegation gives you temporary access to perform tasks on behalf of another person via a short-term security role change. So it changes someone else's security role so that they can see your info or your inbox. All right, I'll stop for now. We'll keep the polls to about 30 seconds. So do try to answer them within about 15 and 20 seconds. And I saw the answers start to change when I said, read it again, because the first part is true. It does give someone temporary access to perform tasks on your behalf, but it is not because of a short-term security role change. It is something totally different. It is its own thing in terms of what delegation is. It's not a change in security role. Change in security role would be a much more involved process than delegation. Thanks, everyone. Okay, so now I'm going to jump back into Workday and take the screen from Bonnie in just a second. A few things that I want to highlight, how to set up Workday in a way that you will like and your people in your units and colleges and world will like. I'm sure they'll ask you, how do I set my preferences or how do I set my shortcuts? So we'll show you how to do that. We'll show you how to view your team and how to show others how to view their team, where payslips are, where documents that folks have updated or uploaded are, the time and absence management dashboard, among other things. So I'm going to take the screen. And I'm going to go back to the block O here, away from delegations for now. And I'm going to jump up to the top right again here to something that I skipped over, which was shortcuts and quick access. So here you'll see shortcuts, which I haven't added any yet because I want to show you how you add these items. And let's say I want to create a shortcut for creating spend authorizations. And if you spell it wrong, it'll still show up, which is nice. And I'll click OK. And now I'll be able to go to this business process of create spend authorization very quickly whenever I need to. And because I searched on it from here, this isn't just, it's not something I have to set up any further. These are populated in, so it'll take me right to the first step of creating a spend authorization. If I want to go to an external link, and I'll just pick one of the first ones that I see, I can add it here. And if I'm much more often creating spend authorizations, I can click this caret to move it up. So to show you what I did, I just clicked that item to move it up. And you can feel free, like I said, to go into the lab tenant and start to play around with this as well. For the most used apps, this performs like your emojis on your phone. So it's based off of recency and how often you use them. So it's not something that you need to take action on. It's just going to appear there in terms of how you're using Workday and how often you're using different apps, applications in Workday. And all of these are called apps or applications. One of the ones that is really useful, and this will illustrate the wackiness of the training tenant, is viewing your team or your org chart. So you'll see that there's several Kelly Proctors, but this would naturally have different people's names because it's very unlikely that we have 8 Kelly Proctors at Ohio State. I don't think there's even one because this is, again, fake people, synthetic data. But anyone that's orange in this org chart has people reporting to them. So you can click into them and see who is on their team, who's reporting into them, and in turn, who has people under them. So Dale Ross, for example, has people under him. And you can always export or print to PDF or PowerPoint as well on these items. One of those items that include pictures, for Ohio State, we're not having pictures in Workday, so everyone will appear as a cloud there. Another common place that people will ask how to get to is their pay. So there's a couple different ways. So I did it through the app, but you can also go through the worker profile, which I'll show you in just a second. And again, because this is the training site, this person doesn't have any pay yet, but this is where they would be. I know PeopleSoft does not like it when you press the back button, but Workday is totally fine with pressing the back button. So you can open new windows, press the back button, and nothing weird happens. If people need to view their W-2, they can do that here. If they want to change to receive electronic copies versus a paper copy at the end of the year, they would do that here. And again, I know I'm clicking around very quickly. We are recording this session with the expectation and the hope that you go back in and just remember, I think that person talked about where to view their W-2. So that is my hope. I'm going to jump into the worker profile, which if you remember Workday Basics, you were probably in here a lot in that video or when you were viewing it. So any documents that you have updated or that are in Workday are going to be here. So these were some sample ones that I just uploaded, just a cute picture of a dog and a cute picture of a cat, but there'll be more official documents in there in the real Workday environment. And this might be something that people will ask, how do I find that document that I uploaded into Workday? I have no idea where it went. And they'll all be here. Okay, and I'm skipping over a lot of these. I'm not going to talk about all of them, just in the interest of time. The other item that I wanted to highlight was preferences here, and these are our notification preferences. So it'll take a second to open here, but this is where you'll decide and probably help others as they're getting used to Workday at Go Live. I'm going to scroll past these for now. What kinds of email, mobile push, pop-up notifications do they want to receive, if any? It's going to default to mute for many of these. But I think the best option, and one that I know is really common across all institutions that use Workday, is to select one daily notification. So if you or your leader are getting a lot of emails and you want to switch to one email a day, you can select one a day, and it will send an email summarizing all of the notifications from the previous day. So for today, notifications, inbox items are coming through. You can select to get an email tomorrow at 8 a.m. on Friday of all the things that happened on Thursday to catch you up so that you're not getting things in real time. Of course, if you want to get things in real time, you certainly can, but it can be a little bit overwhelming at first as you're getting used to Workday. Last one I want to highlight is the time and absence dashboard. And for Adam, he is a manager liaison for a fake person named Dr. Cora Everett. And in her time and absence dashboard, there's some approval items in there because she has people directly reporting to her. Adam does not, but I'll show you what that looks like from the manager side who has someone reporting into them in just a bit. Okay, so maybe some questions come through, maybe some comments, but we'll jump back into the PowerPoint for now and maybe we can address those.
Yeah, so the only question that came through was about security roles and asking if it was possible to see your security role in the tenant. And so that actually isn't that option to do that. And so, if you are curious as to what your security role is, we would recommend, checking in with your supervisor or your fiscal officer for your senior fiscal officer for your college would have that. But I would definitely recommend starting off with your supervisor first.
Okay. Thanks, Bonnie. Okay. If you could open up the poll, my computer's a little frozen right now. I can't hear you, Bonnie.
Okay, sorry, I was trying to get the poll started. So the poll is back open. So the question is, which of the following are options in the Workday inbox items? All right, I'm gonna end it.
Yep, my computer's back.
Oh,
okay.
Perfect, great.
All right, thanks everyone. The options are all of them except for delete, so that was a multiple selection option. So you're getting the full Zoom poll tour if you guys don't use Zoom very often. But like I said, the view of seeing the process and what has happened and who has taken action and what is remaining in the process is such a huge benefit of Workday, and seeing it in a simple, easy to read way that we don't want to delete anything. And in fact, that's not really an option for most processes. Okay, let's talk about your role as a manager liaison, if you are a manager liaison. So not necessarily everyone in this room will be a manager liaison for a leader in your unit or college, but it is really important that you know what people with this security role can do, what they have access to. So this is a security role. It is quite different from delegation, even though we're talking about it just recently after delegation. I can't stress enough that they are separate things. Delegations are short-term, really easy to assign someone a delegation. You just have to have their manager approve it in Workday. And a manager liaison is an entirely different security role. So it's not something that you can just assign someone a manager liaison locally within Workday. It's a little bit more involved than that. And there's two types of manager liaisons. There's initiator and approver. Most of the things that you can do for people in this room are as initiators, so we'll focus mostly on that. We'll talk a little bit about what approvers can do, but not as much because won't apply to as many people in this training. You can kind of consider manager liaison an ongoing delegation. So if you are a manager liaison or your leader or someone in your unit or college has a manager liaison, they might ask you, okay, what do I have to do to initiate this manager liaison or make sure that they can do the things that I need them to do. Those are already decided within the security role. So it's already set up. There's nothing you have to go through and select like how I did with the delegations. Another note about manager liaisons is any items that you get to your inbox, if you are a manager liaison, your manager or your leader will get them as well. They'll continue to flow to your leaders' Workday accounts and supporting manager liaisons, which includes many of the folks in this room. So both will be able to initiate or approve these items, but your leader will be discussing with you who has specific ownership of specific tasks. And that's one of the reasons why we would want anyone who's an executive administrative assistant in the room or who knows they are a manager liaison and working directly with the leader and doing some things on their behalf, attend the leader onboarding with them so that you can begin to have those kinds of conversations. Okay, we can jump to the next one, Bonnie. So just a reminder, as a reminder, we're going to be in the training tenant. So you stay in the lab tenant. The training tenant is just for us to be able to show to large groups of people fake data and not show any private data. But in the lab tenant, you're going to be able to log in as yourself, see your own real data, and it will look a little bit different to you. Before we jump into the training tenant, though, we're going to give you a 3-minute break in case you need to get a drink, still need to get lunch, but whatever you need to do, we'll be back in exactly 3 minutes to jump back into the environment and show you some more things in Workday.
Great. Tammy, Alicia, while we're on break, do you want to try just making sure you can share your screens?
Yes. Let me try if you don't mind. And you can hear me, I assume, Bonnie.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yep.
How about me?
Yep, I
Hello.
can hear you, Alicia. Hi.
Okay, hello. You go first, Tammy.
All right.
Perfect. I
You
saw it come
should
up.
see my screen. Perfect.
Yep.
Great. All right. I know folks on the line can hear us talking. Don't worry, we're not sharing any secrets. We just want to make sure we're good to go for the audio.
And I'll show mine. There's mine.
Fantastic. All right.
Okay.
Perfect. I'm going to go ahead and take over the share. Thanks.
All right, everyone, you have about a minute left. Okay, welcome back, everyone. As promised, we are going to have some specialists talk you through some things that a manager liaison can do on behalf of leaders in their unit. And we'll have Tammy go first, and she'll introduce herself, and then she'll pass it to Alicia, who will introduce herself before her section. Tammy, go ahead.
Hello. Hello, everyone. I'm Tammy Ament. I'm the lead on the Recruit to Hire team for the Enterprise Project. I've been with OSU and OSU Wexner Medical Center for a number of years and am now in a talent manager role. Today, we're going to go over creating a job requisition, And much like you saw before, I'm in as Ada, and I am a manager liaison for Dr. Cora. So I'm going to start in the search bar like you have seen earlier today. And you notice you see my recent searches there too. We're creating job rec. So it pops up, create job requisition. And then you have a couple of options. You'll notice the ones with stars must be completed. I'm going to start there. I'm working with Cora Everett, supervisory org. So I just type in her name, and it shows the College of Agriculture and her supervisory organization. This is a brand new position today. We're creating a new dean. And the worker type is an employee. They're going to be paid by Ohio State. I'll click OK at the bottom, and this will run through each of the requirements to create a job requisition in a new position within Workday. I'll click on the pencil, and you'll notice that on each page. That gives me the opportunity to make changes here. I'm only going to have one opening, so I'll leave that there. The reason is planned. We had planned to hire a new dean. It was in our budget. There is not a replacement. If this was a replacement position, this field would be required. You'd want to put in who you're replacing. Recruiting instructions. This is new for many of you. If it's an active posting, you'll just click here. If you also support individuals within the medical center, you may use FTE hold, which is just what it says. It holds the FTE on the job requisition, so we can account for it in position control. Those supporting colleges, they're going to use active posting. Recruiting start date, let's leave it as today. I want to start as soon as possible. The target hire date references when you're able to have the individual start. So we're going to think this is super fast. November 30th, we'll be ready. Do note what date you put in here is very important. I cannot hire someone prior to November 30th, 2020. So better to go earlier than later when you're thinking about what date to use this. Target end date, we would utilize if this was a temporary position. And this does not have a referral plan. So I'm going to go ahead and skip that one and click next to move to the next page. So these are the job details. And again, we're just in a lab, or excuse me, a training tenant. So I'm, just going to say the posting title is Dean. Obviously, we would give more detail in real life. Justification, you would truly put a justification there, why, development of a new college, something, substantial would go in that justification. So the next field that I'm on is job profile. And I use the search function and type in that I know I'm looking for the job profile as Dean. You could also go to suggested or recent if it's a position that you commonly fill with an existing position. So I'll click on Dean, and it gives me a couple different options. This will be a 12-month position, so I'm going to go ahead and click on the Dean there. And then this is where you would utilize your job descriptions that have been developed, and you could cut and paste into here. Some of the job profile, depending upon the position, will pre-populate for you. Again, this is OSU 8, so it is our practice tenant. And I'm going to scroll down a little bit. Notice the worker subtype. So if you click on worker types, this will give you the options. Regular position is what we're looking for. We're not hiring a temporary position or an intermittent, someone that comes periodically. So regular worker type. The primary location, I'm just going to type in Parker. You would type in the college or the building that your position is located in, and that automatically populates the job posting location. So on our career site, you'll see that this is the Columbus campus versus being one of our satellite campuses or the medical center. I could have jobs that have multiple locations, and this would be where you enter that. Scheduled weekly hours are 40. And then it's always important to put the work shift. This is a first shift job. The rest is grayed out. You notice there's not a pencil, so we're not going to do anything within these fields. Bonnie, any questions before I hit next?
No questions yet, Tammy.
Perfect. I'm going to go ahead and click next, though, to take us to the qualifications page. You can read this. I'm going to just highlight this section here real quick. If creating a new position, include the breakdown of duties and the responsibilities sections. Job duties and responsibilities should be listed in order of importance with the percentage of employees' time. You see that now. For those of you that are creating job recs now, you'll see those percentage breakdowns. For the sake of time, because we're usually short of time, I'm not going to make any edits on this screen, but this could be where you add those responsibilities right there. I'm going to go ahead and click next. Organizations. What this refers to is really the costing or funding for your particular organization. You'll notice it pre-populates a couple of different things. So your cost center populates right there. And a lot of times that's all that is necessary. The funding stays the same, but there are cases where it could change. So notice there's a pencil there and you can make adjustments as necessary. I am going to change the disaster designation to essential. I can show you how to do it this way too. And the other thing that needs to change here is I need to change the function. And this will be FN111 for academic support. If this were a federal work study position, you would complete these items here, as well as if it was a faculty split position. Please stop me if there's anything I need to further describe, okay? Panelists?
Will do.
The attachment page could be used by your particular college or unit. If this is something that you decide is important, you could attach a document there. Maybe it's a thorough justification of why you're hiring this dean or chair or faculty position. This is completely optional and is not required. The compensation section gives you a range. You'll notice this one's a huge range. On some of our positions, you'll see a more tailored range. When we get through career roadmap, those will all be pretty tailored. But we do need to put something in for the salary. So, you know, after speaking with finance, with your HR manager, would have come to you and said, look, we're looking around, again, just totally making up these numbers, 300,000. And you input that there. That is our default compensation that'll be used through some of the approval processes by your cost center directors. I'm going to click next. This is a new screen for us, or at least until I move to Workday, assigning roles. You know, what does that really mean? If you click here, you'll see the different roles you could add. If it's a search committee, you have the opportunity to go ahead and click this and assign the individuals that are on the search committee. This can be done later by the talent acquisition consultant as well, so it doesn't have to be completed now. The recruiter for the job rec, I know I always work with Harper, so I'm going to go ahead and type in her name, and that TA consultant will pop in. You'll notice these turn to a red asterisk. Once you open the screen and select a role, it's going to require that you actually assign it. This is our summary page, and you'll see this through many of the business processes. It gives you a nice summary of what we just completed. If you notice, hey, an error, I really don't want to have this person start until after the new year, you could go back in and change that. I'm going to hit submit. So you'll see this will have gone to the HR partner. So think your HR consultant. It'll go through executive compensation for review because of the type of salary I put in. Then, as you saw earlier, I'm going to click on the inbox up here. Some tasks were in Adam's inbox. These same tasks will be in his supervisor, his manager's inbox as well. Dr. Cora Everett will see these too. So you can go in from here, and now we're looking at the position. So you've created the job rec, but this is a brand new position. So we just want to double check that everything looks good. You notice the salary is not here because it's a new position. You want to put the exact same salary you had on the requisition, or it will error out. So my advice is to write it down. I've done that multiple times. And I'm going to hit approve here. And then you'll notice we have one more task about the change org assignment. So again, the funding for the position. We want to look through this. Cost center is accurate. We're using the general fund. Remember, I changed the disaster designation. So we want to change it again. And I changed function as well. Let's see if it takes it since I didn't capitalize. It did, so we're good there. And like before, you would just go through and hit submit for this one and go on to the next step in the process. He has a task that pops up. And this is submitted, so if you enter it incorrectly, individuals in the approval process can correct this too. So you look and it shows you who's up next. I love this feature. The cost center director is up next, so you know where the next step in the process is. That is creating a job rec for a brand new position. What happens afterward is the recruiting process begins. You would work with the talent acquisition consultant. They would work through the recruitment. They would send, depending on the type of job it is, help with the offer letter and move through the entire process. Potentially, if we have an individual moving from a professor to a dean or a professor to a chair position, you would also have the responsibility to freeze the faculty position after the start date in that administrative role in the chair or dean position. Bonnie, any questions for me? That's how you create the job requisition.
Yeah, I see a couple of questions populating in the chat. So a couple things. I think they're not necessarily related fully to this process, but do
Mhm.
I need to go to Workday to check all requests, or will they also appear in Outlook? I could probably take that one, Tammy.
Yeah, go
So
ahead. I was going to say, I think
so this is a great question. So if there are items that come to your Workday inbox, you will also get an email in your Outlook to tell you to go check Workday that those items are in the inbox. So it's a great habit to get into, to make sure that you are keeping an eye out for those Outlook items. And the other thing to mention is that the individuals who you support, it'll also be important that they're also checking their Outlook to see if there are any inbox tasks coming to them, because if there are, it could potentially, the workflow could potentially be held up if they don't take action. So great question. So Tammy, one question for you is, if it's around the job requisition process. It says, if we go directly to HR, will they submit our new positions, or is this a new process for us to complete?
it is a new process for you to complete because you hold the knowledge. You know what job you want, you know what new position you need to create. If you're contacting HR, you would have to be sending them some type of documentation. So easier just to do the documentation once, put it in Workday the best you can, and HR will review the job description that's submitted within Workday. Good
All
question.
right, that looks like all there is for now, and I'll keep monitoring the chat.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I am Alicia Hamilton. I am the lead for the Workday compensation team. I have been with OSU for almost 10 years. I'm only a couple of days shy of hitting my 10-year anniversary here at OSU. So I'm pretty excited about that. I have been primarily with HR technology, supporting the current PeopleSoft system and a lot of the HR applications that are within PeopleSoft. So today I will be showing you some compensation changes within a variety of different compensation changes within Workday. The first one being what's called period activity pay. So some of you may have heard about period activity pay. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. What period activity pay is, it's a way to pay an employee over a certain period of time, an equal amount for each of those pay periods that are covered within that period of time. We are using it for semester-based. It's specifically for our grad associates, our grad fellows, and our lecturers who are on a semester-to-semester contract. It's also going to be used for off-duty pay for our 9-month faculty. So that's what period activity pay is at a very high level. It's brand new for Ohio State. It's a functionality within Workday. So I'm going to show you what it looks like, how to key it in. So I am going to use one of Dr. Cora's employees, which is Agna Kurtmill. So I'm going to go straight to her profile and I can take a look at her. I can see, yep, she is a lecturer. She's a semester-based lecturer. So she is definitely one that I want to give period activity pay to. So under the actions, I am going to go to compensation and select manage period activity pay assignments. The first thing on the list here is effective date. This effective date isn't what you might think of as effective date for the person's pay or for when it becomes effective. Really, the effective date is when is this process being run. So the date here is required that it is either today's date or a date in the future. It really has no bearing on the person's pay itself. So we always just recommend just leave it as today's date. It's fine. It's not going to hurt anything. The next thing, of course, is the employee's name. If this person had multiple positions, there would be another field here to show that other position. The only option that would be available are any positions that actually report to this manager. So for this manager liaison, it would be whoever reported to that manager that he or she is reporting or supporting. The next thing here is the academic period. I can look by academic year. So I can select what year I want or what semester I want there, or I can choose a different one. So I'm going to go ahead and do spring 2021. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm going to do autumn, actually. And I can type that in. So I'm going to do 2020 for autumn semester. And you can see that it automatically defaulted in a rate matrix. There's only one, so you don't have to worry about it. Just leave it as the default. I can utilize the quick entry choices if I want, but we'll get into this on the next page and show you that, what all of these are. So I'm going to click OK. So this is the main page for period activity pay. So the first thing to select here is the reason. Why am I adding this period activity pay? Am I adding it? Am I making adjustments? Am I ending it? For this, we're adding period activity pay. Why am I adding it? Well, it's a brand new assignment. It's a new hire. Maybe it's a reappointment. Activity. Well, you can only select certain activities for certain types of employees. Now, so this is a lecture, so therefore I'm going to go and look for the lecturer's period activity pay. So I'm going to select the lecturer's period activity pay. What are my activity dates? What is an activity date? What an activity date is think of it more of when are they working in that semester. So for autumn semester, maybe they're starting August the 15th. Maybe they're starting earlier than that. Maybe they're starting a little bit later. Maybe August 15th is a Saturday. Maybe it's not really that date. So maybe it's really August the 17th. And you'll see automatically that an alert popped up. Basically what it's saying is that this start date is outside of the academic period that we have loaded in. So we have the academic period as August the 25th. Well, that's probably class start date. And most likely the lecturers are coming in early to get prepped for the class. And so therefore they are actually working. So we don't want to make the date August 25th because that's not when they're starting work. They're actually starting a little bit earlier. So I'm going to put in here that he's starting August the 17th. He's not starting August the 25th. And again, it's just an alert. It is not an error message. So it's not going to stop you. And then what's the end date? So when is he going to leave for the semester? He's done. Maybe it's, December 31st. Maybe it's before Christmas break. Maybe it's December 18th. For this example, I'm going to just say December 23rd. So units, so quantity. So if you calculate the lectures by, let's say, I am going to pay the lecturer $5,000 for every course that they teach. Well, then you can say, you know what, he's teaching 3 courses, and that's at $5,000 a piece. That would automatically calculate that that equates to $15,000 for the entire semester. Or maybe I don't know what it is per rate, or maybe it fluctuates that for this class, it's $5,000 for this class, but for this one over here, it's really $6,000. So what I can really do if I needed to is just say, you know what, the quantity, just leave it at 1, it's fine, but I am going to pay him $15,000 for the entire semester. So I can load that there. And again, that just recalculates that total amount. Costing override. So this is where I would say, where does the funding come from for this person's pay? Think of period activity pay more as they're no longer getting paid the general salary, which is, they're getting paid every single month. They're continuously employed here. Really the period activity pay is just for the one semester. So that they're getting paid for. So what is the funding for that? So I can break down the funding to multiple if I wanted multiple. It provides you what the default was. What is the default for this person's position that he's in? What's the default funding? So I can use that, or I can split it out however way I want to, whether it's different grants it's coming from, different programs, or different funding. So for this example, I'm just going to say it's all coming from the default. It's 100% from the default. So, all right, and then payment dates. So what dates are this person's period activity pay going to come out of? Now, granted, I am doing a retro period activity pay because I have it starting back in August and I have it ending in the future in December. So technically he has missed at least a couple of payments, 2 or 3 payments. It says here that it's calculating out a total of 5 payments. Well, there's only 2 pay periods left in the year. What we would like you to do is leave the dates the same. And the reason being is that because we owe him retro, it will calculate his retro appropriately. If you were to change this to say November 1st to December, then it says, oh, well, we only owe him 2 payments. Because what period activity does is it takes his total amount and evenly distributes it to all the pay periods. So with it being August the 17th, it's going to evenly distribute that $15,000 over 5 pays, which is $3,000 per pay. So he's missed 3 payments already. So when he gets his November check, he's going to get August, September, October, and November all in one check. Whereas if you had changed this date to say November, he would essentially get $7,500 in November and then $7,500 in December because it's evenly distributing this amount between the number of pays. So that's kind of the nice thing about period activity pay is that that's what it does is it does evenly distribute that amount over the paychecks that are remaining. So that is entering period activity pay. Before I submit it, one thing I forgot to call out, under comments, one thing that we are highly encouraging people to do specifically for lecturers is that because of the information that we need to provide on their appointment letter, we need to provide like their course load, or colleges that they're working in. So we're highly encouraging people to put that into the comments, into this comment box within the period activity pay, not the comment box down here with the cloud. And the reason being is that this comment box actually gets pulled into that appointment letter so that the HR consultant can utilize that data within that appointment letter. So if it's left blank, it's okay. The HR consultant will just have to reach out to you guys to find out this information. So that is period activity pay. Any questions regarding this page and the entry of it?
No questions, but I'm going to launch a quick period activity poll. Okay, just launched a poll. I'll leave it open for 30 seconds. And the question is, whose period activity pay most commonly used for of these 4? So there's many others outside of one of these, which is the answer. But there's only one in this that it's most commonly used for. And we only have 45 responses of 103 people here. So I like to see at least 50% response rate. All right, we got it. Thanks, everyone. And most people got it right. It is graduate assistants.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. So I'm going to go ahead and submit this. And what happens next, as I said, it will go to the HR consultant who will review it. They'll review the dollar amount. They'll review the costing to make sure everything is aligned. And then they will get the letter prepared for the employee and get that submitted, which the letter will get generated within Workday. So that is period activity pay. The next demonstration that I'm going to show you under compensation is a request compensation change. So within the request compensation change, there's two options within there. There is one to do what you might think the compensation change. So compensation being your base pay, so your salary, your hourly rate. But also there's what's called an allowance option. So within allowance, you can, there's a couple of different options, but it's an amount that goes above the your base pay. So a perfect example is, say my person here, which is Cheryl, she's taking on additional duties. She's going to be the interim fiscal officer or fiscal director. So she's taking on additional responsibility. She's taking on an interim role. So within that, you might want to add 10% or 5% to her pay to account for those additional duties that she's doing. So I'll just point that out, but I am just going to do a base pay rate change. So for Cheryl, one of the things we do highly recommend before making any pay rate changes, and these are ad hoc pay rate changes. These are kind of equity market changes. This is not AMCP. This is not a pay rate change due to a promotion or a change in job. This is what we've been calling like an ad hoc pay rate change. So not aligned with any of those things. So I'm just going to do a request compensation change. What date am I going to make this effective? It automatically defaults to the next pay period. Well, maybe I want it effective this pay period. So I'm going to change it to say, yep, I'm making it effective for this pay period. So I'm going to use November 1st. The first thing to change here is the reason. Why am I making this change? Well, for this, I'm going to make a base rate change. And the reason I'm going to use is maybe her, I need to adjust her equity. Maybe I need to do a market adjustment. For this, I'm going to say it's a market adjustment. And then similar to what you saw within the job rec, it shows you the guidelines. So her pay range is between $35,000 and $88,000. And right now she's kind of right smack dab in the middle of it, $62,000. So maybe this particular role that she's in, maybe it needs a little bit more. So maybe I'm just going to make it $63,000. And it shows you the amount that has changed from the before to the after and that percent of change. So what I could do, say you've talked to, we're highly encouraging you guys to talk to your HR consultant in advance, maybe even talk to your compensation consultant to kind of confirm that this is the right course of action to take. So what I could do, if the agreed upon amount is that she gets a 1% pay increase, I can just say, give her a 1% pay increase and it automatically calculates that out. So it's $62,600 instead of the $62,004. So I can do it that way as well. And click OK. One thing I just want to point out, so if she happened to be hourly, that would show up down here instead of the salary. And just to show you the allowance really quick here, let's just type in the interim, just so that you can see it. So with the interim, I can select if I were giving that to her instead of a pay rate change, I would be giving her an interim pay bump, if you will. I put in whatever percent that is. In additional, I would need to say, when do I expect or when is it actually going to end for her? So I would populate that date as well to say when it would end. So that is pay rate change. Pretty simple. I can put in comments, discuss this with my HR consultant. This is what was agreed upon. I can attach documents. Maybe it's an email. Maybe it's, you know, some other document that's been just provides that this is what was agreed on. This is the proof for the pay rate change. This is the reason for it. So that is a pay rate change. Delete that allowance. Any questions on a pay rate change?
No questions in the chat, Alicia.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and submit that, and that will go to my HR consultant for approval. It may also go to the compensation folks to approve there, and it also may go to the fiscal officer to approve as well. So if Cheryl happens to be the fiscal officer, then it would go to one of the other fiscal officers who are also one of the change controllers there. So that is the pay rate change. The final compensation change that I'm going to do is a one-time payment. So maybe when you talk to your HR consultant and your comp consultant, it's determined that maybe it's not a compensation change, but maybe instead it's just a bonus that you need to give them. They've done a great job in the year, and so now they need to just get a bonus instead of a pay rate change or that compensation change. So same thing, going to my actions here, going to compensation, and I'm going to request a one-time payment. So again, what effective date? So I'm going to again say I want it effective now. And then why am I giving this to this person? Well, I'm getting it because they've done such a great job. It's a bonus, it's incentive, it's, you know, it's performance based. They've done such a good job on this. So I'm going to put in my reason. And then what am I going to give them? Well, I think I'm going to give them, I've looked through it all. We've all agreed the compensation consultant has recommended that it's a discretionary bonus. So I'm going to search for that, and there's two types. I can do a flat amount or percent base. So for this, I'm just going to say it is a flat amount. What the dates mean is basically when do they earn this discretionary bonus? Maybe it's planned for that. For example, that if you work from January to June and do XYZ performance, then in August, you will get this bonus. So the coverage start and end date just says, when did you kind of earn it? And then it's planned to be paid out in August. Now, if it's a retro where, let's say, for example, that if you do this body of work, you're supposed to get paid for this in August, but you're just now keying it in. It's November. So really, that effective date at the top that we had up there, let me go back, really should be that August date, because that's when it was owed to them. So that should be the date that you should be keying in here, is when is that person supposed to have or will be getting this one-time payment. Maybe it is something that you missed, and that's okay. We prefer that you get it done on time, but you know, it happens. So we're going to put in the effective date of when they were supposed to earn it instead of today's date or the current pay period. Let's go back, discretionary bonus. And then when did they earn it? We're going to say January. And then what's the amount? The other thing that they've asked is to put in some additional information. So why am I doing this? Did a great job and deserves this bonus. And then in addition, the costing information. So for this, I'm just going to get everything from the top, up top here, just to make things easier. So I don't have to retype all of this. D100. And I think there was, yep. So, all right. So now I've put in the funding for this, and that is one-time payment. Any questions on this? And I can also put in comments, and I can add attachments.
No questions, Alicia. Pretty quiet chat today.
Perfect. All right, then I submit it. It goes to, again, it goes to the HR consultant for approval. And For some of the one-time payments, they will go to the compensation folks, and for some of them, it will go to the fiscal officer for approval. So it just depends on the type of one-time payments, depends on who it gets routed to. So that is one-time payments. And that's all I have to share. Back to you guys.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Just a reminder, if you have any questions, you can ask them at any time in the chat. We'll obviously try to answer them in the moment, but if we can't, they will all be captured and posted in a Q&A matrix on the Administrative Resource Center. So don't be shy if something totally random but Workday related pops in your head, you can ask it in the chat at any time. Okay, so we just went over initiating job requisitions, adding period activity pay, requesting compensation change, one-time payments. And just a reminder, this is all things that manager liaison initiators can do. So you might be in this training and you might not be a manager liaison initiator, but we do want to make sure that everyone has a knowledge of the most common things that manager liaison initiators can do on behalf of or for their leader or their manager, or their director in their unit or college. So again, we're not saying that if you are in this training, you have to do all these things. In fact, we would highly encourage your leader, your director, or manager to do these things. It's just that you can also do them on their behalf. But the expectation is that you'll work together to talk through who will be doing what, which is again why we would like you to join your leaders for leader onboarding, which begins November 18th and continues beyond November 18th. So there's several different sessions, and we'll talk a little bit more about that at the end. We're going to jump back into Workday actually for me to go through those last 3 items right now. Okay, so again, I am Adam Gurr, so I'm the Manager Liaison Initiator, and I have a couple items in my inbox that I need to take action on, or that I should take action on, that go both to my inbox and to my manager's inbox, as I mentioned, so just a reminder of that. This one for onboarding support actually goes to my inbox and the manager that I support, and the HRC, HR consultant for your unit's inbox. So whoever starts or submits it first will be in charge of continuing the process, or whoever opens the item first. Once you click on it, you'll have 48 hours to make changes. So the proper process for this is to review the inbox item, who it's for. You'll see a lot of information is defaulted in. And you'll look at the welcome message here. So this is for the new person, Jack Mallett. If you are constantly looking at how many exclamation marks you're putting, like me, and want to remove an exclamation mark or something like that, you can feel free to make those changes, of course, with your leader's blessing. You can add any people that this new person should meet that we would recommend. I know that there's a lot of John, so I always put in John as my example. But it would be, naturally someone who you know would be useful for this new person to connect with. And we can also send John a note saying, hey, heads up, the new person's coming and we want you to meet them, or we're telling them to reach out to you. So heads up, they will be doing that. And you would put in the subject line and the notification message here, and make it a little bit more substantive than hi, but we'll just put that in for now so it lets us move on. And then any helpful contacts, these will be automatically populated as well, but you can choose if you want to notify them in a similar fashion, like there's a new person starting, be aware that we put you as a list of a useful person to connect with, so they might connect with you rather. If you have any comments, let's say added John because he is helpful. And that's just to show you what this looks like in the process when you submit it. So anytime you submit something, it will always look like this: success, event submitted, what the business process is, in this case, onboarding setup for hire and who it was for. And there's a little caret facing to the right. And if you click on it, it will give you details, further details of what you just did and what process has happened so far. and what remaining process there is. So for this one, it's not a multi-step process like it is for request compensation change that we just saw with Alicia. After you submit something, it will go to the HR consultant and then compensation and then maybe some additional units or additional departments. But this is just a two-stepper, so there's not a whole long list of lines for the process. But again, you can always see the process, any comments, who completed it, exactly when, down to the second they completed it. So if there's any questions about where something went wrong or who submitted what, it will appear in the process here. So now I'll jump over to initiating or continuing on with a voluntary termination. So for this person, Jolie, she had a resignation, so it was a voluntary resignation. So I click voluntary and resignation and say, okay, that's done. Anytime there's a pencil, you can edit things in there. So if you need to change these dates for any reason, you can do that. So you want to confirm the termination date, last day of work, pay through date, resignation date. And a word about the resignation date, that is the date that the employee submitted the resignation. And the last day of work and the pay through date will default from the termination date if you change any of those dates. Okay, and this says, naturally, the last day of work cannot be later than the termination date. So you'll see that updated some of the dates there. We want to add any additional details here. It was not regardable as voluntary termination or voluntary resignation. And we won't close anything else here. Again, you'll see most of the things are populated in. You just want to verify and check. And you can say that you checked for accuracy. You don't have to put a comment in here, but you can if you would like. And we'll say we're done here. The last thing that I want to show is how to request or add in an absence for another person. So again, I'm still Adam Gurr. I'm manager liaison for Dr. Cora Everett, and Adrian is direct report of Dr. Cora Everett. So if needed, I can go in and add an absence on behalf of Adrian Jefferson. I can't add an absence for Dr. Cora Everett as her manager liaison. So that's a little bit of an idiosyncrasy in this process. It is on purpose and it will be that way. So again, if I am a manager liaison for someone, that does not mean that I can add absence for them, but I can have Dr. Cora Everett's superior's manager liaison add time. And I'll reiterate that after I show you what this looks like. But it's very simple to add time off. So if we're clicking here that we want them to be off up until Thanksgiving, I can click on the 17th and I can actually keep my mouse down. You obviously can't see that I'm keeping my mouse down, but I can drag and let go of my mouse to add vacation. And it's a very simple process. If I forgot to add what this is, I can do that. And this would be for something like if they had an injury or they were maybe unexpectedly leaving, that you would add it for someone else. For vacations, people would add that for themselves. This is more so if someone was unexpectedly out and they couldn't log into Workday, something like that, and we needed to add an absence for them. Here you'll want to verify that everything looks correct and submit the item. Oh, what did I do? So in this example, it actually exceeds their time off, because I think this is my example that I've been playing with a little bit. So I'll just do 2 days and we'll see if they have 2 days here.
I think you might have drained their balance.
I did. Oh, maybe All right. I think it did it for them. The last thing that I'll do is show you what this looks like on the part of Dr. Cora Everett so that you can see the time and absence dashboard. I showed you the time and absence dashboard on behalf of Adam Gurr, but he doesn't have any direct reports, so you wouldn't see any approvals there. But as the leader, the director, or anyone with direct reports, you'll see certain requests pending approval. You can click on them. So we had a previous request for Bryn Beard, and we can review those and the actions, approve them, send them back, add approvers if there's someone else they work really closely with, but they don't officially report to them. We can add them there and approve it. So again, I'll repeat that weird kind of web that allows you or doesn't allow you to add vacation on behalf of someone else. So let's say Associate Dean Dr. Jackson in the College of Medicine wants to take time off. She can't have her manager liaison initiator add it for her, but she can have Dr. Carol Bradford's manager liaison, who's presumably above her, add the vacation. We would like everyone to add their own vacation because it is very easy. It is what I just showed in terms of clicking the items and selecting what kind of leave it is. But if you do need someone else to add vacation, you have to have the manager liaison of your superior add it for you. You cannot add it for your leader, even as manager liaison. So just a little note that you may assume you can add it for them, but you cannot.
So Shayla, one question that came in the chat was regarding Kronos. So if you do support individuals that, so there's a question about using Kronos after January 3rd. So if you do support individuals who work at the medical center who are using Kronos, Kronos will continue to still be used. If an individual uses Kronos, they will use Kronos to request their time off, and also, of course, for their time as well. So just to be clear, that's a unique distinction for the medical center for employees. So I just wanted to call that out.
Any other questions in the chat that we could address?
No other questions at the moment.
Okay. All right, we can jump back into the PowerPoint and talk about manager liaison approvers. So this was something that I mentioned at the top of the training. We've only been talking about initiator up until right now. But as you mentioned, there are two types. So for the health system, they had their administrative assistant training on Monday. There is not anyone who's a manager liaison approver in that group. And even in the other groups, campus, College of Med, Office of Health Sciences, it is very unlikely that you'd be a manager liaison approver. There's not a whole lot of different business processes that you can fulfill. These are the two primary ones. But the reason it's less common for someone to be an approver is because in order to be a manager liaison approver and to have that security role, you have to have, it has to be documented in the college or VP unit's signature authority, otherwise known as approval authority. So individuals with this role need to be in a position to escalate and question if submissions appear inappropriate. So it is very much a heightened role versus an initiator role. You'll likely have some people after approving and verifying things. But again, these are the two key processes that manager liaison approvers can fulfill listed here on the slide. But for the purpose of this training in this group, we're mostly focusing on initiators. I just didn't want to totally ignore the fact that the approver role exists. Okay, so for now, we'll talk about travel and purchasing just in the interest of time to make sure that you guys can get out at 4 o'clock, and I'll pass it over to Bonnie for that.
Great. All right. Hey, everybody. Bonnie here. So I'm going to talk with you all a little bit about travel and purchasing. So let's talk a little bit about what you as an administrative assistant can do to support, you can do on behalf of others, I should say. So you can request travel or business leave on behalf of others, and you can also submit their expenses. And so in order to be able to do both of those things, you need to have the expense data entry specialist security role. Okay. So the unique thing to point out here, and we'll take a closer look at this in a second, is that if you are entering an expense report on behalf of another person, that individual who you are submitting that expense report for will eventually get a Workday inbox task after you finish the report. They will need to review it before it is moved along in the cert and to be paid out. So I just wanted to call that out. Additionally, you can also purchase goods and services on behalf of others. And I don't know if there's anybody here on this call who really just serves the health system, but if that pertains to you, only personnel with a requester security role can purchase goods at the health system. So let's take a look at some process flows so we can talk a little bit about how this will work. And then what I'll do is I will go into the tenant, I'll go into the Workday environment and show you what this looks like. So let's talk about spend authorizations. So spend authorizations, this is basically your request for how you would request to travel. And so the way this works is that either you or the individual that will be traveling would enter in a spend authorization in Workday. Once again, it can be completed by the end user or the individual with the expense data entry specialist role. A notification will go to the traveler's supervisor in Workday as an FYI to let them know that this has been submitted. Then the cost center manager will approve that request to travel. They're going to take a look to make sure that the budget is correct and the business purpose is there and there's policy compliance. If it's for traveling for a grant or a program or something like that, it will get routed to that appropriate project manager or grant manager for that approval step. Then the department leader will approve that travel. And in many cases, chairs serve in that department leader role. So they'll take a look at, they'll be able to review it. And once the department leader approves, the traveler will be able to book and prepay for any travel arrangements. So this means that they'll go into, for example, if you use Concur as your travel vendor, they'll be able to go into Concur, book their travel, and continue on to travel when we are traveling again, I should mention. And then the last step is the service center will review for any compliance. So then let's talk a little bit about spend authorizations. I'm sorry, I just went over that. Expense reports. So expense reports happen, after the travel is completed. And so either you can create that expense report for that traveler or that person can do it themselves. One thing to note is that as part of the expense reports, you can take photos on your cell phone and submit those attached to the expense report. So that is a slight change. And then once that expense report is submitted, it goes to the service center to approve for compliance. And then the expense report is completed. Now, if there are some things such as if the expense report is greater than 20% of the spend authorization or it has a high risk item on there, there are some additional approvals that have to be done. All right. So the last thing I want to mention, that there is a P card process that happens within Workday as well, and anybody with the expense data entry specialist role will be able to manage the P cards within P card charges within Workday as well. And so I have that flow here as an FYI. But let me go ahead and let me actually hop into the tenant to show you a little bit what that's going to look like. So I'm not going to go through the full process, and I just want to really show you the beginning step because there is training on creating spend authorizations and expense reports already. So I'm not going to go through that full process. I'm just going to show you that first step. So let's say your individual who you support is going to be traveling and you need to go ahead and book their travel. So what you're going to do is you're going to do a spend authorization. So I'm going to create spend off. And here you'll see there's 3 options that pop up. A create a spend authorization is if I personally am traveling, but you would click spend authorization for worker if you're booking travel for somebody else. Now, when I click on this, I will get a screen and it allows me to select the person who I'm booking travel for. So you'll see here that I can actually type in someone's name. So I support Cora Everett. And so there's her name, and there's some information that populates. One thing that I want to point out, if the person who is traveling is actually a health system employee, you would change the company to OSU Health System rather than Ohio State University. So I just want to point that out. So then you would go through the steps that are outlined within that spend authorization and expense report training about how to put in those items for the spend authorization. Okay. So the next thing I want to show you is how do you create an expense report on behalf of others? It's pretty much the same process. So if I type in create expense, so you'll see once again, I have three options: create expense report for non-worker, and then create expense report for worker. I click on that, and once again, I have the option of selecting a different person for this will get paid to. So once again, I'll get paid for Cora. Her information will populate, and then I can go ahead and fill in the remaining details about the expense report. Once this is done, it will get routed to Dr. Cora for her to take a look at, confirm and certify the expenses, and then it'll move forward in the workflow for her to get paid, or reimbursed, I should say. Okay. The last thing that I want to show you is about purchasing. So now you can also purchase on behalf of others as well. So the system that we use is called Buckeye Buy. So let's create a purchase requisition. Okay, I'm going to click on create requisition. And you'll see here that I actually have the opportunity to create the requisition. My name is populated under the requester field, but if I am requesting this service or these goods for somebody else, I can change this field. So if I was going to purchase it on behalf of Cora, whoopsies, I can actually select her name here. And then I can actually complete that purchase on behalf of Dr. Everett. So I won't go into the details. There is an e-learning called the Buying Experience. It's in Buckeye Learn, so I encourage you to take a look at that, which will go into the details of how to use Buckeye Buy. And it'll also talk about, if you have the need to buy something off contract, how that will work. Okay. So Shayla, before I move on, are there any questions in the chat regarding travel or purchasing?
No questions regarding travel and purchasing.
All right, great. There is one, I see one other question. Is there a version of that buying training for, yep, so I see that. Yep, so there is a buying, the buying experience, and there's also the buying experience for the medical sector. So please go ahead and take a look at both of those trainings. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at Workday Training at OSU. All right, Shayla, over to you to talk about the guest process.
Sounds good. Okay. So as you might know, there's often a need to give guests access to some of our systems, and we certainly don't expect you to memorize how this works in Workday. So I'm going to walk through some of the job aids that we have up and ready for you so that you can reference regarding this process when you are ready to take a look and need to use them. So you can go on to the next slide, Bonnie.
Oh, the Administrative Resource Center. Sorry about that.
Well, yes, but first, I just want to show which ones we're going to be highlighting. So there's 3 different ones that I'll show. And again, you have access to them. I just want to give you a quick rundown of what to look for and how to approach them. So I'm going to take the screen back from you and go into the Administrative Resource Center. The first one that I'm going to highlight is the NEP Reference Guide, which is the Non-Employee Population Reference Guide. And it's more of a matrix than a traditional job aid that you might see. Usually when I think job aid and when you should think job aid, it's a step-by-step process, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that's what you do. But this is more of a matrix because of the nature of the many different kinds of guests. So I'm going to share my whole screen now, actually, because I want to show this matrix. And it's going to give you a rundown of how to use it, where to start from, and a refresher on what these different things are that it mentions in the matrix itself. So what is IDM? That's where all of our guest creations are going to come from. And what are the different types of guests that there are? And that's going to help give you an intro to the rest of this matrix. So a few things that I'll highlight here. A and B are going to give you the type of role and details of what that role is. D is going to show you where does this initiate, and they're actually all my.osu.edu. So you're not creating anything in Workday. I want to mention that because I know that can easily get confused since we're talking about Workday. This is a Workday training. But what this highlights is who is in Workday and who isn't. And if they're in Workday, what's their job family? Are they a contingent worker? Are they an affiliate worker, which is what column F shows? And then what other sites do they have access to? So this is really where it crosses over from being useful to just Workday to whenever you're thinking about what do guests have access to at Ohio State. So do they have a university email or not? Do they have access to DocuSign? Just to name a few. And there's a lot to see here. So I just wanted to give you a quick rundown and let you know that this exists. So I would encourage you to take a look after the session as well. And then I'm going to jump back into the Administrative Resource Center to quickly highlight the creating the guests and affiliates item. So this job aid is more traditional, going through step by step in a numerical fashion. This one, the thing that I want to highlight is it looks long and a little scary, but it's actually only 6 steps. So it's just giving you lots and lots of detail about every different option. For example, in this one where you have to fill in the request a sponsored guest identity, it's going to give you all of the different options here. And that is the main thing that I wanted to highlight because it just looks a little intimidating when you first open it. Again, the left side are going to be the steps, and then the right side are some of the call outs, maybe some things that lean a little bit more policy, reminders, things like that. And then the last one that I want to highlight is the managing guests and affiliates section. And this one, again, the reason I wanted to highlight it is this short line looks so scary. This is not a 100-step process. It is organized by type of worker. So if it's an academic affiliate, a contingent worker, and also by what you're trying to do, if you're trying to change information, administer payment. And what I would invite you to do is when you need this to go into it then. It's not going to be as helpful to you now. But when you do go into it, you'll want to click right on the place that you're going versus swipe through the whole thing. And it'll take you right there with the link. Okay, next I'm going to pass it back to Bonnie to talk a little bit about reporting in Workday.
Great, thanks everybody. All right, so we're coming up to the last few topics here. So I just want to mention reporting in Workday. So just a few things to notice is that when we meet with the leaders to do their onboarding, we're going to talk with them a little bit about Workday reports. I think in the past, staff have pulled reports for Workday, not Workday, for leaders out of eReports and other tools, but when we transition to Workday, they'll be able to pull those reports directly for themselves out of Workday. And they may need some guidance on how to do that. And so, as we go live, we'll be learning more about the report process and what that means about how to pull things out. But the key thing here, I think, is just these items will be available in Workday. They are cross-functional, so they will have data for HR, payroll, supply chain, and finance all in one place. So there'll be a lot of dashboards and other tools available for leaders. The last thing I want to mention is just how to get assistance. So, as we shared in the beginning of the session, if you remember anything from today's session, we would say, make sure you bookmark the Administrative Resource Center, because that's going to be an excellent source of support for you when we do go live. There's tons of job aids, demos, videos out there for you to leverage. But there are some key people that you can ask questions to. The first people might be your HR business partner, or your HR consultant. Well, Tammy, Alicia, and Shayla have all talked about the role of the HR consultant in many of these transactions. They're going to be a great resource for you. Your SFO or finance director will be a great person to help if there's any questions about work tags and making sure funding is correct for certain transactions. You also have your change coordinator, and I have the link here to our change network so you can see who your change coordinator is. Once again, if something is missing from this, please let us know and we will work with you to correct that. We'll also have the help desk options and help desk numbers for you to call. And then of course, there is our Administrative Resource Center. So the next steps that we would recommend is leaving today. Once again, I think it's not on here, but I would recommend bookmark the Administrative Resource Center. 2, make sure that you're taking a look at the Enterprise Project Calendar. This calendar has important dates, such as when is the last time, or when is the last date we can enter in something into HRA or Green Action. What are the purchasing timelines for when certain systems are going to go down in preparation for Workday going up. So I definitely recommend taking a look at that. We want to encourage you to complete all of your Workday trainings in Buckeye Learn for you to be able to take a look at those and make sure that you are ready to go for January 3rd. And then if you are an executive administrative assistant, please make sure that you connect with your leader. They are signing up for their own Workday leader onboarding sessions. And it's a great opportunity for you to attend that with them because we will go over much of the similar content with them, but from their lens. So with that being said, we're getting to the end of the time today. And so we're just going to pause here and just thank you all for your time today. And thank you for the great questions. Are there any other questions before we wrap up today? Shayla, are you seeing anything else in the chat?
No, no other questions. Someone asked if the PowerPoint slides will be available as well, and yes, they will. So I'll send a link with a folder for this training with the recording and the PowerPoint slides, as well as key links that we talked about today, where those Q&As are in the Administrative Resource Center. We'll also send out a survey, and please, please, please do fill out the survey. To do the required parts only takes 60 to 120 seconds. Of course, we'd like you to add more in the open spaces, but we are looking to gather as much feedback as possible, especially before that leader onboarding, so that if there's something that we should really dig into more and you recommend us to highlight or focus on for the leader onboarding training, a lot of the content is going to be similar. We would love to hear that feedback because you all know best about your units and colleges.
Okay, well, with that, Shayla and I will stay on the line for the next 5 minutes in case there are any more questions in the chat. But we appreciate your time today. Thanks for joining us.
Bonnie, if you want to go over to the last slide, it has the Enterprise Project email. So for any folks that need a little bit of marination time, I know I always need a little bit of time, so you can feel free to email enterpriseproject@osu.edu, and we're very diligent about responding to emails there as well. All right, folks, we'll give it one more minute and then we'll drop off. Okay, we're going to end the recording